Incredible boy discovers hidden voice of billionaire's daughter after 12 silent years. Touching. Ethan's fingers trembled over the piano keys, the weight of his unfulfilled dreams pressing on his chest. He was only 16, yet the world felt like an avalanche of judgment and indifference, burying him under the expectations of a town that rarely celebrated those like him. He volunteered at a local arts program, hoping perhaps naively that the melodies he poured out could somehow bridge the chasm between his heart and the glaring inequality of his life. But each note resonated with a deep-rooted fear, a fear that his talent was simply not enough in a world that valued wealth over passion. The day he stumbled upon the Hawthorne estate was ordinary, too ordinary for all the change it would bring. Pine trees lined the expansive drive, leading to a mansion that loomed like a fortress. Every corner of his being vibrated with anxiety as he stepped closer. Only a few weeks prior, he had overheard whispers at school, snickers directed at the idea of a boy like him mingling with the elite. He could feel their eyes, those critical gazes, heavy on his back, judging him before they even knew his name. They would not understand how he had found a kindred spirit in Emily, the girl who lived in captivity of her silence. With every lesson they shared in the dim light of the grand sitting room, Ethan felt a duality pounding in his chest. His mother often reminded him of the values that anchored him to reality: sacrifice, hard work, tools for survival. But with Emily, everything shifted. The gentle way she touched the keys, her passion blossoming like a flower breaking through concrete, ignited something wild and unorthodox within him. He wanted to break free from the stoic expectations tethering him to his way of life, yet every moment he spent with her was laced with an overwhelming sense of dread. Could he truly step into her world without being swallowed whole? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As whispers grew louder, Ethan's resolve wavered. Would he declare his love for Emily if it meant stepping into a spotlight that sliced sharply against the shadows of his modest upbringing? Fear gnawed at him like a relentless tide. What if her father's empire was impenetrable, and he was but an insignificant wave? In the quiet moments as Emily revealed her soul through music, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that her father was watching, his eyes piercing through the veneer of their joy. Panic of impending confrontation loomed large, especially as the music competition approached, a stage that could carve their destinies into history or bury them under the weight of societal expectation. Throwing caution to the wind had always felt too reckless for someone raised on caution. Paralyzed with doubt and longing for truth, he envisioned the heartbeat of their fragile world fluttering against a wall made of privilege and protectiveness. The air thickened one fateful evening when her father appeared at the door, a looming figure casting a dark shadow across their precious space. "Do you really think you can save her?" he growled, each word laced with a cold authority that silenced the melody of hope. Ethan froze, an unyielding tide crashing over him, the sting of uncertainty and fear coursing through his veins. Would he have the courage to fight for Emily's freedom? The stakes were higher than ever, and in this moment, everything felt irrevocably entwined. The air turned electric, thick with unspoken truths and the weight of parental power. Ethan's heart raced as he stood frozen in stunned silence, grappling with the unanticipated confrontation. The towering figure of Mr. Hawthorne felt like an embodiment of every fear Ethan had harbored since the moment he entered the grand estate. How had the world of privilege become such a prison for both him and Emily? "Do you really think you can save her?" The mocking challenge hung in the air like a noose, tightening around Ethan's throat. This was no longer just about music, this was about breaking through barriers that had held both of them captive in their own ways. That he swallowed hard, desperately searching for words that felt adequate, but the silence that lingered was deafening. He couldn't let this moment define him, but doubt twisted deeper, a coil of shame reminding him of his place. What could he possibly offer against a man like that? But then, a flicker of resolve ignited within him. "She's not a prize to be won," Ethan finally managed to utter, his voice steadier than he felt. The truth rolled off his tongue like an incantation, filling the room with an unexpected light. It took every ounce of courage to meet Mr. Hawthorne's harsh glare, but there was a determination burning in Ethan that he hadn't realized was there. That quietly defiant spirit had been nurtured through their shared music, the intimacy of their lessons, and the gentle revelations of Emily's soul. "I want her to be happy," he continued, his own fear momentarily eclipsed by sincerity. "If that means I have to step away, then so be it, but she deserves the chance to find her voice." The billionaire's sneer deepened, his lips curling in disdain. "You think you can simply walk away? You aim to transform her life, yet you remain trapped in yours. You're just a nobody, a romantic idealist clinging to dreams." The words stung, each one like a dagger meant to chisel away at Ethan's sense of self. Yet deep down, he recognized the truth of that statement too. Did he have the strength to break free from his own fears, to turn his dreams into a reality? As Ethan met Mr. Hawthorne's fierce gaze, he felt a pressure building. "Perhaps nobody is a term only the privileged can afford," he shot back, a newfound conviction surging within. "But what if I can give her something real? Something her world can't provide?" Mr. Hawthorne's eyes narrowed, weighing Ethan's words as if they were currency in this twisted interaction. The silence turned from oppressive to charged, a battlefield where dreams and fears collided. Ethan was surprised to find the warmth of his determination replacing his earlier fear. With every heartbeat, clarity sank in. He saw the possibility of stepping into the arena, not as a defeated underdog, but as a contender. Just as Ethan felt himself gaining ground, a sharp voice called from the hallway. "Dad?" It was Emily, her presence like a crisp breeze shattering the weight of the moment. Ethan's breath hitched. Would she understand the turmoil that had unfolded? The tension crackled with uncertainty, yet he sensed that this was the moment they had both been waiting for. He had to be brave, not just for himself, but for the harmony they had created together. "Emily," he began, heart pounding. The door swung open, and there she stood, framed by the fading light of day, eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. "What is going on?" Ethan's south voice found its place now, a steady rhythm against the backdrop of chaos. "I'm here to help you escape this silence." The air shifted. Would they take the plunge together, amidst the turmoil they faced? Would they carve a path through the uncertainty, or would they allow it to engulf them? The moment felt pivotal, laden with potential and fear. As the shadows danced around them, Ethan prepared to seize control of his destiny, ready for whatever awaited them on the other side of that door. The stakes had escalated, and the time to face his greatest challenge was now. What waited beyond this fraught encounter, freedom or heartache, remained uncertain. But he knew one thing: the melody of determination would guide his way. Ethan held his breath as Emily stepped fully into the room, the atmosphere shifting yet again. In her presence, he felt oddly more grounded, yet the pressure of the moment thickened. This was no longer just about him confronting Mr. Hawthorne, it was about Emily finding her strength as well. "Dad, what's going on?" she repeated, eyes darting between Ethan and her father, confusion swirling in her features. It grated against Ethan that their moment of truth was shrouded in the complexities of family dynamics. He had come here ready to confront his own fears and to encourage Emily, yet now, doubts began to creep in them. Hawthorne's gaze switched from Ethan to his daughter, the intimidating mask of power shifting into something more dangerously paternal. "Just a little discussion about your future, dear," he said, his tone syrupy with a hint of menace. "Ethan seems to think he knows what's best for you." Ethan could feel the heat rise to his cheeks as he squared his jaw. This was the turning point. He had to show Emily that security and silence were not the same. She needed to know that the strength she had shown before was still inside her. "Emily, I was just telling your father that you have the right to choose your own path, your own voice," Ethan interjected, trying to bring clarity through the haze of parental authority. "You don't have to abide by his vision. You deserve to find out who you truly are." Emily's expression softened as she met Ethan's gaze, sensing the urgency behind his words. A flicker of understanding passed between them as if the weight of years had drawn them closer in that singular moment. She stepped forward, seemingly shaking off the tendrils of doubt, if only for an instant. Hawthorne's face tightened, his eyes simmering with a mixture of anger and condescension, believing he held all the cards. "Emily, darling, success comes from discipline, not rebellion. Do you want to flush your life down the drain for some fleeting fantasy?" The word flushed sank deep into Ethan's gut. It felt like an inexplicable attack, one meant to sever the thread of hope he'd woven with Emily. But rather than retreating, he felt a fresh vigor stir within him. "Is that what you think this is? A fantasy?" Ethan challenged, his voice rising in pitch, driven by a newfound conviction. "Emily dreams much bigger than the shadow you keep her in. These last 12 years of silence were not just about adherence to your expectations." Emily's eyes widened, her breath catching as though she might just take in this moment of truth. There was risk in relinquishing silence, in claiming her own voice, but it was far more dangerous to remain shackled to someone else's vision. "Ethan's right," Emily finally said, her voice soft yet steady. "It's my future, Dad. All I want is a chance to be who I am, to explore this world without fear of what you think." Mr. Hawthorne's face contorted in disbelief, not expecting such defiance, especially not from his daughter. Ethan could see the gears shifting in her mind, that tiny step toward autonomy unfolding in real time. A shift in the energy swirled around them, creating a tension that was both exhilarating and frightening. Ethan had warned Emily about the dangers of speaking out, yet here she was, poised to embrace the very part of herself that had been tucked away for so long. Her voice. "Like you always told me," she continued, emboldened, "a life without song is a life not fully lived." Ethan watched as Emily took a deep, tremulous breath, her spirit igniting with every confident word. He felt a rush of pride, mixed with hope. Could they truly forge a path together from this moment forward, away from the grips of Mr. Hawthorne's control? But just as the atmosphere began to crackle with possibility, Mr. Hawthorne's steely resolve rippled dangerously. "You think you can walk away from me? I built everything you know. Do you think you can do this alone?" The threat hung palpable in the air, echoing with the implications of what they had just dared to challenge. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline, every internal alarm ringing. This was the moment where fear could either crush them or fuel them onward. Ethan turned to Emily, their camaraderie lighting a flicker of rebellion within. "No. Together, we can save what matters to us," he said, the resolve in his tone binding them in solidarity. But could they navigate the storm that loomed, reclaiming their voices amidst the echoes of a powerful patriarch? The stakes felt higher than ever, as shadows of uncertainty threatened to engulf the hope they ignited. What would the next move be in their battle for freedom, a duet of defiance against the silence that had kept them inert? Ethan felt the tension coiling tighter, each word exchanged like a shot in a high-stakes game. The weight of Mr. Hawthorne's stare bore down on him, a reminder that the stakes extended beyond just Emily's independence. They now encompassed Ethan's burgeoning sense of purpose. This was no longer just about Emily finding her voice, it was a revelation of his own strength as well. The silence following Mr. Hawthorne's threat was deafening. Ethan knew they had crossed a threshold. No longer trapped in the shadows of control, he sensed that Emily's eyes, reflecting a mix of resilience and fear, begged for him to keep pushing forward. It was as if she was daring him to take the lead, a twin flame igniting a shared resolve. "Mr. Hawthorne," Ethan began, tempering his voice, but carefully avoiding the pitfall of submission. "You've built a life for yourself, but it doesn't justify stifling your daughter's dreams. Your legacy is not hers to inherit, her happiness is independent of you." He felt uncertain but propelled by the crumbling facade of authority before him. It wasn't just about Emily's future anymore, it was about dismantling the weight of expectation they both felt. Emily's expression sharpened, soaking in Ethan's words. "I won't throw my future away to live in your castle of discipline, Dad. I have plans, and I want to pursue them," she asserted, standing taller now. The flicker of fire in her voice was unmistakable, and it urged Ethan forward. "Together we will explore those plans, Emily," he said, attempting to quell the gnawing doubts that had clung to him since they entered the room. The bristling energy between them felt electric. Clarity enveloped him as he seized this chance to promote action instead of retreat. You don't have to figure this out alone. I'll be there. You have your song and I'll help you find it. Mr. Hawthorne's face contorted with disbelief and anger. You think you can just walk away? You think you can take her from me? You're a nobody in this world, and she is my daughter. His voice bristled with anger, fueling Ethan's determination. With his heart racing, Ethan faced the man who had loomed over Emily's choices like a concrete wall, rooted in fear rather than love. And where has that left her? Trapped in a gilded cage of expectations. You don't get to decide her life for her. We need to embrace what true success means: actual happiness, not mere metrics of achievement. In that moment, Ethan's own realizations crashed over him like waves. He understood how authentic connections and well-being overshadowed status and wealth. They were both constrained by their pasts, yet here they stood on the precipice of liberation. The burgeoning alliances felt sacred, intertwining the fight for both of their futures. Emily turned towards him, the light of newfound resilience illuminating her features. I will not settle for less, she stated decisively, her gaze still fixed on her father, her voice unwavering. There was strength in her stance, a silent acknowledgement of the unfolding journey ahead. But Mr. Hawthorne's eyes burned with fury. Doubt and fear for his legacy echoed through him. You may think this is a game, but I will not let you take her away without a fight, he declared ominously. Their confrontation wasn't just about rebelling against a patriarch, it was a battle for convictions, a negotiation for the right to dream. As the weight of uncertainty loomed larger than the room itself, Ethan felt the walls closing in around them yet again. They were still blinded by the flickers of fear, each pulse a reminder of what they could lose. He took in a shaky breath, aware that their next steps carried immense consequences, a labyrinth fraught with danger. What's next? Emily whispered, her doubt mingling with hope. That single question lingered in the air, hanging heavy between them, as they sought clarity in the darkness surrounding their fight. The undeniable certainty remained: Emily had emerged, but their journey was far from over. The impending conflict threatened to undo all they built, and yet, they had no choice but to prioritize their voices. How would they navigate the whirlwind of control, expectations, and shattered promises? Time to confront not just Mr. Hawthorne, but the very identities they had once hidden. Would their growing alliance foster the resilience needed to reclaim their lives? The menacing path forward pulsed with uncertainty, yet it stood immutable before them. A duel against fate awaited. Ethan took a step back, his heart pounding against the confines of his chest. The air crackled with an intensity that felt all-consuming. They had declared their intentions to challenge Mr. Hawthorne's control, but the weight of that decision bore heavily on him. He looked at Emily, her gleaming resolve acting as both a guiding star and a reminder of what was at stake. Emily, he managed to say, grounding himself in the moment. We need a plan. This isn't just about standing up to your father. We need to prepare for the fallout, whatever that may be. The thought of confrontation sent chills running down his spine, but he recognized the necessity of action over self-doubt. She nodded, understanding the practical implications of their rebellion. What do you suggest? We can't just walk out of here and expect him to let us go. I need to get my things and, ideally, a way to support myself, Emily replied, her voice steadying with each word. It dawned on Ethan that this wasn't just about preserving her dreams, it was about carving a new identity for both of them. Let's start by outlining what you need. Do you have any contacts, any resources at all? Ethan pursued, shifting into a strategic mindset. He felt the adrenaline coursing through him, a stark contrast to the trepidation that had shadowed him earlier. It was exhilarating to entertain the possibility of their freedom. Just a few friends I've kept in touch with. They can help me with a place to stay, she replied, her gaze flickering away momentarily. But financial support is a whole different level. Ethan offered a reassuring smile, even as anxiety drummed in the back of his mind. I can take on a job, he said, a plan taking shape in his thoughts. It might not be glamorous, but I have skills. I can network, find a way for us to collaborate. And we can work on your music in the meantime. She looked at him, uncertainty still dancing in her eyes. You'd be doing all that for me? After everything? It won't just be for you, he said, catching her stare. This is for both of us. We're rewriting our narratives, and it starts with taking back control. Your voice is important, and so is mine. The conviction in his voice startled even himself. The doubt that had once plagued his thoughts felt lesser, like cobwebs swept away in a strong gust of wind that Amar. Hawthorne had always seen them as insignificant, perhaps that was the key. If they harnessed the power of their dreams and built a new multitude of purpose, he would realize how wrong he had been. The gravity of what lay ahead wasn't lost on Ethan. They were stepping away from old identities, away from the roles Mr. Hawthorne eagerly assigned them. He felt a burgeoning sense of autonomy ignite a fire within him. Perhaps this was a hidden resilience, unearthed at the most pivotal time. Let us get information about those internships or music programs, Emily proposed excitedly. But first, can we secure a safe space for when we leave this house? I don't want to look back once I step out the door. Taking into account her immediate concerns, they wrestled with the intricacies of their desires and preparations. Through whispered conversations late into the night, they strategized, mapping out possibilities on a grubby notepad they de-scrounged from the living room desk. As soft dawn light broke through the closed curtains, casting long shadows over their makeshift war room, an unexpected realization struck Ethan. What they were engaging in was no mere act of defiance, it was an awakening of potential. His resolve solidified further at the realization of Emily's escalating vigor sparking something within him, something he had buried beneath layers of self-doubt. With every plan drafted, Ethan grasped something significant, a commitment to confront the whispers of his past insecurities while also framing Emily's future. This pursuit wasn't only about fighting for her freedom, it was a reclamation of his own spirit, but just as they started plotting concrete steps ahead, the door creaked open, revealing a stunned Mr. Hawthorne. His gaze shifted between the two, betraying a mixture of confusion and rage. What are you two plotting? He thundered. Ethan's heart raced, the confrontation unfolding quicker than they had anticipated. The stakes had risen. Would their preparations hold under the weight of this new reality even before they had the chance to put their plans into action? The moment of truth arrived, charging the atmosphere with tension. The air hung thick with tension as the uncertainty of confrontation loomed over Ethan. Mr. Hawthorne's piercing gaze dug deep, and for an instant, his heart felt trapped within an iron vice. He had prepared himself mentally for this moment, yet standing before the looming figure of authority made doubt creep back into his mind. Would they falter now, as everything seemed to hang in the balance? Nothing you need to concern yourself with, Father, Emily said, her voice unyielding. Ethan admired her bravery, but beneath the surface, he felt a tremor of fear. Mr. Hawthorne was not just any parent, he wielded power like a weapon, and surprise had always been his ally. What I need to concern myself with is your future. You seem to be confused. Mr. Hawthorne's voice held a chilling calmness, yet Ethan noticed the irritation bubbling just beneath the surface. He felt the urge to defuse the situation, to intervene before it escalated, but his instincts told him stepping in might only intensify Mr. Hawthorne's rage. Ethan glanced at Emily, recognizing that this was not just her battle to win. She'd shown remarkable courage, but they needed a strategy. What are you going to do? He whispered under his breath, but before she could respond, her father advanced a step closer, eyes narrowing. You think you can just waltz out of here with my daughter? You have no idea what it takes to build a life in this world. You're nothing but a distraction to her. Something snapped within Ethan. The comment struck him like a dagger, aimed straight at his worthiness. He felt the tight coil of desperation twist into a knot of defiance, a fire igniting in the pit of his stomach. I'm not just a distraction. I can help her. We're working on something together. Something meaningful. For a fleeting moment, incredulity shone in Mr. Hawthorne's eyes before it was replaced by a patronizing smirk. Meaningful? You think your little plans could ever compete with the privileges I've provided for her? Every word Mr. Hawthorne spat felt designed to undermine both Ethan and Emily. Yet in that moment, locked in the dark intensity of the confrontation, Ethan felt clarity. This wasn't just some idle challenge, this was a stand for his beliefs, a move to establish the value of their pursuit, however chaotic it might be. Emily deserves more than a gilded cage. This isn't about comfort, it's about passion and potential, Ethan declared, his voice unwavering. He could feel his pulse racing, a rush of reality devouring every doubt. Each word he spoke chipped away at the silence he had lived in for so long. Just because you can offer her security doesn't mean it's what she wants. Immediately, he felt a mix of adrenaline and fear as the seriousness of his defiance registered. Mr. Hawthorne's expression twisted from disbelief to anger, and the room charged with an electric current of confrontation. Even if Ethan was shaking internally, he understood this moment mattered. The silence of compliance was over, and he had at last found his voice. Don't you dare try to speak for her. Emily flared, adding layers to their rebellion. Ethan could see her spirit align with his in that moment, reinforcing both their determination. The truth was coming to light, they were a team ready to face the storm, the tension simmered, stark shadows dancing over their faces as the silence stretched out like a taut string ready to snap. Mr. Hawthorne, caught off guard, blinked as if readjusting his worldview, yet Ethan knew the battle had just begun. They had laid the groundwork for a fight that would lead them to unknown territories, both in their relationship and their futures. Consider what you're losing, Emily, Mr. Hawthorne warned, an edge of desperation creeping back into his tone. It was a final attempt to fracture their resolve. Consider what I gain, Emily shot back defiantly, glancing at Ethan, who felt his chest swell with pride. The solidarity between them was an unmistakable strength that filled the room with purpose, binding them through the chaos. As Mr. Hawthorne stepped back, processing the unexpected firmness in their stance, Ethan caught sight of the door, a symbol of the possibilities ahead. They had ignited something unquenchable, a rebellion born not just from anger but from the desire to thrive beyond their edges, yet as the confrontation unfolded, Ethan could sense a deeper threat, a feeling that Mr. Hawthorne would not back down easily. He needed to be ready, not only to defend their resolve but also to challenge everything they had been conditioned to believe. With new clarity igniting his ambitions, he understood that their fight had just begun, what lay ahead was a daunting journey, and as he locked eyes with Emily, both fear and exhilaration melded into a single thought: they needed to brace themselves. The true test of their commitment waited just beyond the door, in a world filled with unprecedented risks and challenges. Would they be prepared to face Mr. Hawthorne again, and perhaps even the truths about themselves they had yet to confront? As Ethan and Emily stepped through the doorway, leaving the tense confrontation behind them, the air felt lighter yet charged with an electric sense of uncertainty. Ethan's heart raced, the adrenaline from their stand still coursing through his veins. He could hardly comprehend the weight of what had just transpired. This was more than a confrontation, it was a beginning, a crucible of their sincere intentions and unsteady grounds. Did we really just do that? He asked, breathless as they moved into the sprawling garden outside the mansion, filled with manicured hedges and blooming flowers, a stark contrast to the turmoil of the confrontation. Yes, and it felt good, Emily replied, a hint of vulnerability threading through her voice. She brushed her hair behind her ear, glancing at him with a mix of trepidation and excitement. But we can't just walk away thinking we've changed everything. Ethan nodded, knowing she was right. The challenge they faced transcended a mere exchange of words. It was a gauntlet thrown, demanding a thorough reevaluation of their identities. The world they were stepping into reeked of complexity and obstacles, particularly in the form of her father and his insidious influence. What do we do now? Ethan questioned, the reality of their new allegiance dawning on him. With the confrontation behind them, he could feel the weight of responsibility shift through the air like an arrow in flight. They needed a strategy, a plan to strengthen their defenses against Mr. Hawthorne's formidable will. First, we need to reflect, Emily suggested, her gaze settling on a sprawling oak tree. We can't fight this fight without understanding exactly what we want. Ethan felt an inkling of dread at the thought. They had emerged from the storm, but the tumult within remained the fear of inadequacy, of being unable to protect what they both cherished. "I want to help you," he admitted, words tinged with sincerity. "But I'm scared of failing you." A contemplative silence enfolded them, thick with shared uncertainty. "Fear is part of it, Ethan. But we need to channel that fear into something constructive, a plan that strikes at the core of Mr. Hawthorne's expectations," she expressed, a newfound resolve burning bright in her chest. The garden became their sanctuary, and a mental space for strategizing unfolded. In his mind, Ethan began to weave possibilities, determined to illuminate a trajectory that shattered the confines of Mr. Hawthorne's life script. "We can document our ideas, make them concrete," Ethan proposed, ignited by the spark of collaboration. "Present them in a way that aligns with your father's vision while showcasing the passions that drive us." "Yes!" Emily exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. "If we provide a rational argument, alternative pathways built from our strengths, we can start to shift his perception." Fueled by this vision, Ethan could feel their synergy growing, and for the first time, he glimpsed the contours of their potential. He saw Emily not merely as Mr. Hawthorne's daughter but as a partner with equal aspirations. The bond they were forging could be her declaration of independence from the gilded cage, yet, even as hope surged through him, doubts crept in. Would Mr. Hawthorne listen to reason? Would he accept the rebellion of his daughter and her companion? The prospect of rejection was daunting. "Let us meet tomorrow, early," Emily suggested, her voice steady, stripping away the hesitation between them. "We'll draw out a plan, gather our thoughts. The sooner we act, the less time he has to manipulate the situation to his advantage." Ethan felt an unexpected surge of confidence in her suggestion. "Agreed. We'll prepare ourselves for every scenario. This is more than just about us, it's about redefining what we aspire to be." As they parted ways, Ethan's mind raced with their next moves. Their commitment to each other had unraveled a path that demanded exploration. Yet, lurking behind him was still the shadow of Mr. Hawthorne, an adversary steeped in social prominence and cunning strategy. The clock was ticking. Each passing moment propelled them into an arena where dreams collided with ambition. Would they emerge victorious, reclaiming the narrative of their lives? Or would the weight of expectation drown their aspirations in silence? As Ethan turned to face the night, an unfamiliar defiance coursed through him. He could no longer be mere friction in the rich tapestry of Emily's life, he was ready to confront the challenge head-on. But in that moment of resolve, the sharp reminder of insurmountable odds hung in the air. The time was coming to transform not just their dreams but also the reality they would have to navigate, a reality increasingly twisted by the influence of Mr. Hawthorne. Ethan clenched his fists, preparing for the battle ahead, spiraling into a determination that pulsed through every nuance of his being. Would they possess the courage to challenge the tangled web of power that held them prisoner? Only time would reveal the outcome. Discomfort mingled with anticipation as Ethan realized they were on the brink of a confrontation that would shed light on the very heart of who they were and who they could become. Ethan woke to the sound of determined raindrops pattering against his window, a fitting accompaniment to his whirlwind of thoughts. As he lay there, remnants of last night's confrontation and the promises exchanged with Emily cascaded through his mind like a series of flares illuminating a dark path ahead. He had ventured into the unknown, yet there was no turning back. Pulling himself out of bed, he paced through the small confines of his room. He was acutely aware that each step forward demanded clarity, not just tactical plans against Mr. Hawthorne, but a deeper understanding of what he intended to achieve personally. The stakes had risen, and with them, his responsibility. Ethan had once floated aimlessly between ambitions and limitations, but now his trajectory felt distinctly purposeful. He was no longer just an observer in Emily's life, he was an agent of change. As he showered, the warm water washed away his lingering doubts, allowing space for burgeoning confidence. Every drop felt like a step towards self-discovery, peeling away layers of insecurity. He had a mission, to help Emily redefine her world. The thought settled into his bones like a comforting warmth, bringing with it a sense of belonging he had longed for amid the isolation their previous lives had imposed. Stepping into the kitchen, Ethan prepared coffee, the aroma invigorating his senses. Alone with his thoughts, he reflected on his own voice, often muted in the face of more dominant personalities. The confrontation had been a catalyst, nudging him toward carving out a presence in a world where silence had been his default. He couldn't afford to retreat into that space now. With a newfound resolve, he turned his focus to the day ahead, a meeting with Emily to forge their plans. They had decided to gather at a quaint cafe near the mansion, a place where the buzz of daily life could overshadow the looming shadow of Mr. Hawthorne. As he sipped his coffee, he envisioned their brainstorming session unfolding, ideas blossoming, their combined creativity igniting sparks of possibility. Arriving at the cafe, Ethan's pulse quickened at the sight of Emily. She was seated at a corner table, her fingers dancing over a notebook filled with frantic scribbles and diagrams. The sight of her deep in thought, yet visibly transformed from panic to productivity, filled him with hope. "Hey!" she greeted, her face breaking into a smile that lit up the dim interior. In that moment, the weight of their mission melted away. They were partners in the fight, and the camaraderie they had forged last night rendered them unshakable. "Ready to turn this place upside down?" Ethan asked, settling into the seat across from her. "Absolutely," Emily replied, her energy palpable. "I've been thinking about what would appeal to my father, his values, his vision for the company. We have to meet him where he stands before we can steer him elsewhere." Ethan nodded, impressed by her strategy. Emily's approach contained an undeniable power. "Let us write down the main points we want to communicate. Rational, persuasive, and infused with our vision." As they moved into detailed discussions, he slowly began to realize something vital. With each idea that flowed between them, he was carving out his own identity, not just as Emily's ally, but as a creator of his own narrative. Time dissolved as they meticulously fleshed out their plan, transforming anxiety into a purposeful approach. Ethan sensed the synergy building, a mutual respect blossoming into a shared understanding. Yet, beneath this excitement simmered a pulse of dread. What if their best efforts were thwarted by emotions entrenched in Mr. Hawthorne's power dynamics? When their session came to an end, and they sat surrounded by scattered papers and cups long emptied, a contemplative silence fell. The cafe buzzed around them, but their world felt uniquely encapsulated, charged with possibility and tension alike. "We're ready," Emily stated, and even as she said it, Ethan could hear a hint of apprehension. As they prepared to leave, the moment felt electric. He could see the glimmers of uncharted paths stretched before them, bright with potential but shrouded in uncertainty. Just then, Ethan's phone buzzed with a message, the screen lighting up with a notification that would shift everything, a directive from Mr. Hawthorne, a request for a meeting. Suddenly, the stakes multiplied. Would this invite be an opportunity to confront the very essence of their plan? Or did it signify a tightening noose around their aspirations? In this looming encounter, Ethan grappled with a growing realization: the challenge ahead would require not just strategy but a formidable inner strength. Would he be able to rise to the occasion and assert his voice when it mattered most? As they stepped out of the cafe, the world spun around them, but in Ethan's heart, uncertainty lingered. The moment of truth was approaching, and he felt the pulse of possibilities both exhilarating and terrifying, leading him to question, was he truly ready to own his place in this narrative? Ethan's heart raced as they strode down the bustling sidewalk towards the looming figure of Hawthorne Enterprises. The weight of the meeting began to settle heavily on his shoulders. He had found a voice, yet the prospect of using it against such an established force filled him with an electric blend of excitement and fear. He glanced sideways at Emily, who was deep in thought, her brow furrowed. The sight of her resolve was a calming beacon. "Do you think he'll listen?" Ethan asked, uncertain of whether he was addressing Emily or his own doubts. She paused, then looked up at him, her expression steadier than his felt. "He has to. We've crafted a compelling case. But, we must be strategic. We can't let his emotions derail our ideas." Ethan nodded, absorbing her confidence. Yet, as they walked through the glass doors of the building, a chill swept through him. The high ceilings and stark modern decor served as a stark reminder of Mr. Hawthorne's unyielding presence. He was about to confront the very embodiment of power and privilege, an establishment he had long felt the edges of but never dared to challenge. As they took the elevator up to Mr. Hawthorne's office, Ethan's mind spiraled through layers of preparation, their strategies, potential counterarguments, even his breathing techniques to silence the rising tide of panic. His thoughts turned inward. How had he arrived at this intersection of courage and fear? It was only weeks ago that he had been floundering, struggling to define who he was outside the shadows, and now here he was aiming to impact a man used to striking down competition fiercely and decisively. When the doors slid open, they stepped into an expansive office bathed in natural light, everything meticulously arranged. Mr. Hawthorne stood by the large window that framed the city skyline, exuding a commanding aura. He didn't turn, his focus seemingly tethered to the view outside. "Good to see you, Emily," he said, finally acknowledging them as they entered. Then he fixed his gaze on Ethan, assessing him like a puzzle he had yet to solve. "And who might this be?" "This is Ethan Foster," Emily introduced, her voice even. His name hung in the air, heavy yet liberating, as he felt the floor shift beneath his feet. Clarity hit him. This was his moment. "Ethan, huh?" Mr. Hawthorne grunted, his tone skeptical. "What brings you here?" Ethan felt Emily's hand brush against his, a small, grounding gesture that revived his confidence. "We're here to present a proposal that aligns with your vision for Hawthorne Enterprises," Ethan began, his voice steadier than expected. Mr. Hawthorne raised an eyebrow, almost intrigued, yet Ethan could sense the skepticism. He pressed on, driven by an urgency to reveal the potential within their plan. "We believe we can expand your brand into new markets while also refining your current ventures. You'll see a clear pathway to not just profits, but to innovation that aligns with your legacy." The words flowed, each one an affirmation that he was no longer content to remain in the background, yet, with each sentence, a part of him wondered if he was being audacious or sincere. Did he truly understand the intricacies of Mr. Hawthorne's ambitions? As he turned to Emily, she nodded encouragingly, a mirror of the growing determination he felt inside. They had crafted a powerful narrative, but now it was a matter of seeing if it resonated with the titan across the desk. The atmosphere thickened, Mr. Hawthorne continuing to scrutinize Ethan. "And why should I trust you?" That question hung in the air like a sword poised for a fall. In that instant, Ethan confronted a deeper truth within himself, a revelation that his voice could not only resonate with authority but with integrity. The honesty of their intentions held weight. "Because we believe in your vision, and we're willing to challenge ourselves to make it happen. Emily is ready to step into the leadership role you envision for her, and I'm here to support her." Even Ethan felt the power of this admission. He wasn't just advocating for Emily, he was asserting his place in this partnership. Mr. Hawthorne turned to Emily. "Do you agree?" She inhaled deeply, a decision crystallizing behind her eyes. "Yes. It's time to shake things up, Dad." As anticipation hung palpably in the air, Ethan felt the shift in the energy around them. The pulse of possibility surged through him once more. Yet still, a tremor of vulnerability flickered within. Was he truly ready to uphold this new identity? The challenge loomed before them, but now they both stood at the threshold of something monumental. With silence falling over the room, Ethan braced for the next words that would either propel them into a new realm of opportunity or send them crashing back into the confines of what had been. Did they have the strength to challenge the man whose shadow loomed over both their ambitions? As Ethan waited for Mr. Hawthorne to respond, he realized the moment of truth was upon them, a defining choice that could either transform their lives or shatter their dreams. Ethan felt suspended in time, every heartbeat echoing in the silence that enveloped the office. Mr. Hawthorne's gaze bore into him, measuring the integrity of their proposition against the iron will that had dictated their lives for far too long. "Shake things up," Mr. Hawthorne finally said, an incredulous laugh spilling from his lips. "And you think you can lead her there?" The challenge dripped with condescension, but instead of shrinking under the weight of his words, Ethan straightened his posture and met Mr. Hawthorne's eyes with unwavering clarity. "Yes, we do. Change isn't built on the foundations of comfort, it's constructed from the daring steps of those ready to question the status quo. In that moment, Ethan recognized his evolution. Once tethered to self-doubt, he now projected a sense of purpose, his commitment to Emily fueling a fire he had almost extinguished. The fear that once choked his voice had transformed into a force that drove his conviction d'amar. Hawthorne narrowed his eyes, caught off guard by Ethan's assertiveness. "You think you know better than me how to run my empire?" Ethan sensed the tension thickening. "It's not about knowing better, it's about offering new perspectives. Emily has creative visions that can genuinely revitalize your company." The words felt electrifying as they tumbled out. "She deserves the chance to explore them without fear of judgment." Emily squeezed Ethan's hand, and the connection between them solidified. She stepped forward, finding her voice. "Dad, I have dreams beyond what you've envisioned for me. I want to use my talents to create something real, not just live in a shadow." Ethan watched as the room shifted, the reality of their unified front filled the space with an undeniable energy. This was no longer a moment defined by Mr. Hawthorne's power but by their joint audacity to dream beyond what had been dictated. "Real?" Mr. Hawthorne sneered, "What does that even mean?" "You're talking about abandoning everything I've built for you." "No," Ethan interjected, "we're talking about building something new alongside what you've created. A legacy that represents freedom, not just wealth." The room pulsed with anticipation as silence hung like a guilty secret. Would Mr. Hawthorne finally understand, or would he retreat behind the walls of his empire, desperate to maintain control? Then, unexpectedly, a flicker of uncertainty passed across Mr. Hawthorne's face. It was the tiniest glimpse of vulnerability but enough to send a ripple of hope through Ethan. He could read the changing tides of power. The challenge they posed was cutting through the armor of authority like a well-placed note in a symphony. "Do you really believe you can disrupt what has been the norm for generations?" he finally asked, the defensive edge in his voice softening slightly. "Yes, because we're no longer willing to accept doubt as a definition of who we are," Emily replied, her voice steady despite the weight of her father's scrutiny. "And I'm not backing down this time." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Ethan felt the realm of possibility expanding. It was as if both of them were standing on the precipice of a new future, one crafted by their own determination rather than imposed expectations. "Your company could thrive with innovation, Dad, but only if you allow yourself to believe in us," Ethan urged, his voice gaining strength. "This isn't just an opportunity for Emily, it's a chance for you to reassess your legacy. Is it defined by power and control, or by the spirit of ingenuity you can inspire?" For a heart-stopping moment, Mr. Hawthorne was silent. The resolve swirling among the trio began crystallizing into something that felt like hope. Emily turned to Ethan, and amidst the tension, they shared a silent promise they were not just a duo ready to face the storm, they were architects of their lives, reinstating their voices with bravado and subtlety alike. Eventually, Mr. Hawthorne's facade cracked, a look of contemplation washing over his features. "Perhaps change is necessary, at least to some extent," he conceded slowly, an uncharacteristic softness in his tone. Ethan barely contained his triumph. "You have the power to reshape this legacy, to give your daughter and yourself room to grow and adapt. Together, we can redefine what success truly means." With each heartbeat, clarity poured through Ethan like a surge of electric energy. He recognized they had achieved something monumental. No longer were they defined by Mr. Hawthorne's stringent expectations or wealth. This moment shifted the clouds of uncertainty, propelling them toward newfound autonomy. Arm in arm, Ethan and Emily stood resolute, knowing they had carved a distinct path where they could flourish as creators of their destinies. This confrontation with Mr. Hawthorne marked the transition from silence to sound, from fear to courage, and finally, they were ready to embrace the music of their lives. Now, the real work of transformation lay ahead. As they exited Mr. Hawthorne's office, Ethan felt the weight of the world shift off his shoulders. He had fought for his identity and Emily's, and together, they found the strength that came from confronting fear head-on. He stepped into the light of the world outside, filled with a newfound assurance, ready to embrace whatever awaited them, and that was a voice worth celebrating. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It really matters. Comment below your reactions and theories about this transformative ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel. Your engagement fuels the power of personal overcoming stories.